Back in New York, best buds Gerard Butler and Channing Tatum are palling it up, having a good old time and watching the best bad movies they can find. When unbeknownst to them, after 3,500 years of waiting, an ancient Mayan prophecy is about to come to fruition.
Hey, let's grab that basketball. That one over there. I want to go play some hoops.
No, bro. I don't think today's a good day for that, bro. I just got this weird cosmic vibe, like from the Pope or God or something, bro.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I thought you were Channing Tatum.
Yeah, bro. I'm totally Channing Tatum, And I just got this feeling, bro. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some Mesoamerican prophecy from 3 millennia ago just wants me to, I don't know, bro. Save the United States of America from, international terrorists or something, bro.
The Mayan prophecy predicted over some 3,000 years ago foretold of a cold and ancient evil. A cold and ancient evil that would only once again come to try and conquer a beautiful and majestic land.
OMG, look, it's the White Walkers. They've come for America. Someone quick, hide the Purple Mountain's majesty. Gee willikers, quick, someone throw some towels over the amber waves of grain. And throw the fruited plains in the barn. Quick now, quick, there's no time to waste.
It's not the White Walkers, Ed. It's just some Canadian tourists. They're not here for our mountains. They just want to take some pictures in front of the White House.
But Ed knew better. Ed, much like the Mayans before him, with their advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and totally awesome storytelling, had predicted that in the year of 2012, the American White House would once again come under siege.
Hey, it's us. It's the Canadians, eh?
Yeah, we're here to talk about the North Atlantic Trade Agreement there, We just feel like maybe you guys kinda hosed us over on that one.
No more milk.
Yeah, no more milk. We don't want no more of your American milk up here.
Yeah, no more milk. Also, you all have to buy more syrup.
I'm sorry, what's that? I'm just here for the tour. I don't know. I don't really know what you want.
She's not listening there.
Okay, I guess we're gonna have to burn it down.
Okay, burn it down there.
Watch as this July, for the first time in 200 years, America has to once again fight for its independence.
Raul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What the f*** is going on? There's f***ing Canadian tourists everywhere.
Those aren't Canadian tourists, Raul. Those are Canadian terrorists.
This 4th of July, the only thing that stands between the American dream, independence, and a bunch of Canucks.
Hey there, what's with their racial slurs and bad accents and whatnot?
Yeah, that's really low there. You two should be ashamed.
Yeah, you Americans like to make fun of us with Canadians here.
Yeah, but who's laughing now,
Hey, is that fire started over there?
I'm trying, but I can't get this ever-loving Zippo to work in the rain there.
Ahem, as I was saying, the only thing standing between the American dream and the savage brutality of the wild and untamed Canadian Mounties is Gerard Butler, Channing Tatum, and a couple of bad movies.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why would the Canadians want to attack America?
Hey, this there concrete doesn't seem to be catching on fire very well.
I don't know. What don't you? I don't... maybe pile up some of that furniture there around the base. Start with that.
Oh, good idea. Oh, okay. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, it's starting to burn real good there.
Why were you doing this there again?
I think it was because of some ancient Mayan prophecy there. Or NAFTA? Or something. I don't remember. Sure it's nice though. Nostalgic and whatnot.
Yeah, it is sure there. Oh yeah, you remember 1812?
Oh yeah, clear and crisp as maple syrup there.
Oh yeah, beautiful year.
Beautiful year it was. Oh yeah.
Why don't you pass one of those hot dogs there? Oh yeah, that's nice. Brings back memories.
Hey, there's no concessions allowed on the White House lawn.
Oh jeez, we're sorry there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for that.
You're gonna go to jail for that.
Can this ragtag misfit crew of diehard patriots actually put aside their differences and save America?
Wait, where did all this broken glass come from? Wait, Vera, where are your shoes? Don't you need shoes? Vera, your shoes!
No, silly boy. It's okay. I can push through the pain. I just have to. Oh, say, can you see? Raul, wait, bro. What about your shoes and whatnot? We can totally throw Vera your shoes, bro.
Yeah, Raul. Give us your shoes and we can throw them over to Vera. Come on. Come on, Raul.
1 second, bro.
No.
Hey, bro, just
Let me.
give me
Come on.
those. No. It's fine, bro. Here, just
come on.
No! I said keep your hands off my mother. Giants! Raul, what have you done, you monster? You killed Channing Tatum. How could you? You know how hunky I think he is? This is the worst 4th of July ever. Calm down, Vera. That's not Channing Tatum. I just kicked the shit out of him so bad he's hard to recognize. Look, though, it's not Channing Tatum. It's just Gerard Butler. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Hey there. Why are there a couple of full-grown men fighting with a pair of VHS cassettes over there?
I don't know. It looks like a pretty stupid, convoluted premise for a joke, if you ask me there.
Yeah, pretty unsafe too, you know.
Hey fellas. You guys gotta get out of there. We're trying to burn the place down, don't you know?
Yeah, you guys need to get out of there. It's super unsafe. We'd hate to have to call the authorities and whatnot.
We'll do it, though.
We'll do it, yeah, we will. We'll call the fire departments on ourselves if all hooligans don't stop roughhousing and whatnot.
Hey, you two Canadians, I already told you you're gonna go to jail for that. And Gerard Butler, Channing Tatum, you're gonna go to jail for that too. And you, Raul, you're gonna go to jail for that. You're gonna go to jail. You're gonna go to jail. Everyone else gonna go to jail. Do you hear me?
What's your favorite bad movie?
Mom, have you seen my peanut butter?
High five.
Jeez, that's not cranberry sauce.
Watch me.
Some movies are bad. Some are just plain rotten.
I'm not bad. I'm just filmed that way.
Movies among us.
Welcome to Bad Movies Among Us.
Welcome. We're so glad to have all of you back here.
I am Nohea Brown.
And I'm Alan Robertson.
And we're here to
Bring you our 4th of July episode. It's going to be a battle of the bands this season.
Yes, it is our very first Versus episode.
Our very first Versus episode, and we're excited to bring you 2 great movies to be battling side by side. What do we have for us today, Nohea?
It's Die Hard in the White House versus Die Hard in the White House.
Oh my gosh. That's right. We've got Olympus Has Fallen versus White House Down.
Yeah.
That's Channing Tatum versus Gerard Butler.
It's Aaron Eckhart versus Jamie Foxx.
It's the big one, guys. And we've really got a long episode for you. But it's going to be a great episode, and we're really excited to be tearing these 2 movies apart.
So today we're bringing you the first 2 parts of a 5-part episode. It's going to be an epic movie battle here in the BMAU studio. We'll be bringing you the first 2 parts today, where we'll be breaking down our first overly patriotic action-packed thriller, Olympus Has Fallen.
And in the following weeks, we'll be bringing you the next 3 parts. The first 2 of those will be breaking down White House Down, the next of our action-packed patriotic movies, and then finally we'll get down to the actual battle of the bands, the Versus.
The fight about to go down in the parking lot.
A battle 13 Bach tons in the making.
Olympus Has Fallen
Versus White House Down.
And speaking of Bach tons.
So for today's Versus, we're going to be doing 2 separate movies. Really 2 separate episodes. But we're going to be running them back to back, and we're really trying to do a kind of battle of the bands between these movies. And I don't want anybody to worry, because they're both bad movies. We promise you that out of the gate. Both of these movies are really direct rip-offs of Die Hard, which in and of itself is sort of fun. And both movies follow a very similar plot. You see, both of these movies revolve and focus around the premise of the White House being overthrown, the president being taken hostage, and not Bruce Willis coming just in the nick of time to save not only the day, but also the president and the country at large. So these movies might seem like clones of one another, and in a way they are, but they're also reflective of the public consciousness of the era. You see, White House Down and Olympus Have Fallen
were by no means the only apocalyptic-style movies of this particular era. You see, White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen both were purchased as scripts, shot, produced, and developed in the year of 2012. They were released in 2013, and if you look back, there were a lot of these kind of movies in the early 2010s. The early 2010s were kind of littered with mainstream movies that explored the possible fall of humanity. And what's interesting to me is that several of these movies like White House Down, Olympus Has Fallen, movies like 2012, The Purge, Sharknado, all seem to share some thematic elements. Just going through IMDb, it does seem like there's a noticeable spike in apocalyptic movies starting around 2009 and running till about 2013. Then, noticeably, these movies kind of take a small descent before they weirdly spike up again in 2016 in a way that I find very interesting. But it's a little too far out of the scope of this video for me to start researching it right now. You see, though, the spike in apocalyptic movies around 2012, that one's interesting, but it's also pretty easy to recognize the how and why of it all. And that's really because back in 2012, there was a prophecy that the world would end. And what's inspiring so many of these movies, the whole concept, the prophecy, if you will, regarding the end of the world, it's all just the long-term consequences of trying to figure out how long a year actually is. And then how we can take that seemingly uneven number and then translate that into an even number of days. And I want us to step back into the way back machine. I know we use it a lot. Don't worry. We're not going too far back. This time we're just going to jump back a tiny little 5,000 years. Just a short little jump. Don't worry. Really not that long at all. We'll be going back to Central America. And back in Central, or what we'll be referring to from here on out as Mesoamerica, we'll be picking up with some groovy cats back in that period. You see these hipsters, these trendsetters, these Mesoamerican mathematical Casanovas, if you will, having bored themselves with the mundane mathematical inventions like the concept of zero and tired of silly little perfunctories like the golden ratio. These Mesoamericans, they set out to accurately measure the length of a year, and you might think that accurately measuring the length of a year is not that hard, but it really is. It's a bit more difficult of a task than just, counting the days. Because of course, where do you stop counting? If you were just, let's say, using the moon as a guide, as the moon does rotate around the Earth roughly 12 times a year, well, then you'd have yourself a lunar calendar. With a year that lasts 354 days, 8 hours, 48 minutes, and 34 seconds, which is pretty sweet and all, but it's not quite accurate. And you see, a real year is actually 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 56 seconds. Roughly. And some problems arise when trying to use a calendar system that's not quite accurate. The mostly accurate nature of the calendar almost creates an issue within and of itself, as the usage of the calendar seems, fine at first. Year by year, though, the days start to shift, and each year the actual day gets more and more obscured. Then after a couple of decades, the days have shifted to a point where you're planting vegetables in winter and celebrating Christmas in the middle of summer, and that's no good. So Julius Caesar, he was like, man, this got to change. So he decides to implement himself a new, much more accurate calendar in 45 BC. And this, my friends, this is the Julian calendar. And the Julian calendar runs 365 and a quarter days. It adds an extra day for every 4 years, but the problem is, that's not quite accurate either. You see, that is actually adding too many days, causing the date to shift yet again, but this time it's shifting much more slowly in the opposite direction. And this still causes the seasons to drift, which once again means that your oh so critically timed planting for harvesting your vegetables is off. And eventually, poor planting time, that's going to ruin everybody's tater dinners. And once it starts ruining tater dinners, that's where Pope Gregory the 13th gets involved. He's like, enough of the madness, and he declares that everyone shall have their taters and eat them too. So Pope Gregory the 13th, he implements the Gregorian calendar. And that's the current system we use today. And it's one it's totally not convoluted or complicated at all. It's super easy to understand, and everybody gets it because it just makes so much sense, right? I mean, honestly, I didn't even understand how the Gregorian calendar worked even vaguely till a few years ago, and even then, I mean, just looking it up for this episode to make sure you have it right. So, just so everybody can try and understand how the Gregorian calendar works, let's break it down, shall we? Here's how it works. So just in case you didn't know, every 4 years, we add an extra day to February to make February 29 days instead of 28 days, and we call that a leap year. And we all know that we add a leap year because the year is actually longer than the 365 days that we practice. But that actually makes the year a little longer than it should be. It's really inconvenient, but to balance that out, every 100 years, we have what is essentially an anti-leap year, where we have the leap year left out of February, leaving February just 28 days long that year, even though it was previously a year that was slated to be a leap year. Once again, leaving February just 28 days long that year, but that once again messes things up just a little bit, as it makes the year just a little too short once again. So to compensate for that slight discrepancy, every 4 anti-leap years, every 400 years, instead of taking the leap year out of February, leaving it 28 days, we throw it back in, making February 29 days long again and giving everyone 1 extra day to toil on their fiefs in hopes that they might be able to grow, I don't know, like a carrot or something that they can give to their lord next time he rolls by in hopes of gaining some slight favor with him. But anywho, I'm sure everyone's totally absorbed by all of that easily digestible content and fully understands how leap years work now. That all being said, it took Western civilization until 1582 to figure all of this out. And so Mesoamerica was a little bit ahead of the game. They had it figured out at least 4,000 years before that. And I say at least because although we call it the Mayan calendar, we know is actually being used by many cultures in Mesoamerica before that. Although we know that it predated the Mayans, we don't actually know by how long, and theories kind of range. But because nobody's really determined its origin, it has been just roughly called the Mayan calendar for quite some time now, and that's what we're going to continue to call it as well. So the calendar itself, it has a lifespan that ranges roughly 5,125 years. And the Mayan calendar, as we're now calling it, it's actually just a spit a hair and a touch more accurate than the Gregorian calendar that we currently use, roughly 1/10,000th of a day more accurate, just to note. That makes the Mayan calendar pretty gosh darn epic. The actual function of the calendar, it's perhaps a little bit more complicated by our standards. So to note, the calendar consists of 3 separate calendars, all of which work in correspondence with each other, and they are known as the long count, the Zulkan, and the Hob. The Zulkan and the Hob, they are used to identify the actual day of the year, whereas the long count is used to identify the year itself. The Mayan calendar works as a series of 3 interconnected rings, all of which can rotate, each one representing one of these different calendars. This is sort of an oversimplification of the cyclical nature of the Mayan calendar and how recorded dates actually work, but it kind of serves as a template for understanding. So, as opposed to modern Western systems of date keeping where we either record the date as month a year, like we do here in the US, or as day month year like most of the rest of the modern world, Mayan datekeeping, you see, was much more in line with the Chinese system of datekeeping, where they follow a year, month, day system. Thus, in the Mayan dating system, the long count date comes first, followed by the Tzolk'in date, and lastly the Hab. Now, the last calendar, the Hab, that represents the day, and it's really your essential 365-day solar calendar, but unlike ours, it's divided into 18 periods, similar to months, I suppose, of 20 days apiece, and it leaves one 5-day period for a total of 19 months to each solar year. The second calendar, the Tzolk'in, it's a 260-day calendar, and it's divided into 20 separate periods, each consisting of 13 days, and its real purpose, the purpose of the Tzolk'in, is to determine the time of year for various religious and ceremonial events throughout the solar year. The first of our calendars, the long count. Now that is our astronomical calendar, and it's used to track longer periods of time. The Mayans called it the universal cycle, and the calendar itself is spaced out in lengths of units called baktons. Now a bakton is exactly 144,000 days, and this gives the calendar a length of 7,885 years. However, the whole universal destruction recreation belief that is present within the Mayan culture, that whole prophecy is actually spaced out to 13 baktons, and that results in 5,125 years between universes. And the Mayan religion, it was heavily based on this belief of destruction and creation, and it believed that the universe would be destroyed and then rebuilt at the end of each one of these 13 bakton-long universal cycles. The previous cycle, that was slated to end back in 2012, if you all remember. December 21st specifically. And it was the end of that cycle, coupled with the Mayan belief system of destruction and creation, and then just sprinkled with a little dash of modern mysticism, mixed with maybe a few large-scale ecological disasters that happened that year. Disasters like Hurricane Sandy or Typhoon Bopha. And all of that in combination just really went together to create this superstitious gumbo. And it was a thick gumbo. A deep and complicated soup that really sparked the 2012 phenomenon. Although we're past that now, now that we're in a new universal cycle. A universal cycle full of sane and rational individuals. Just, they get along and agree and are good at compromising and breaching gaps between each other. Now that we're in this new sane universal cycle post-2012, it's hard to look back. But back in 2012, there was really this large-scale panic over the possible end of the world. IPSOS, a multinational research group headquartered out of France, they had taken polls in many countries around the world, and they found an average of 10% of correspondents believed the world would really end in 2012. So you gotta understand, 1 out of 10 people really believing that the world is going to end imminently. That is a very dire situation. And I'm sure the heavy barrage of natural disasters that year didn't dissuade any of them either. Typhoon Bopha was a devastating storm. It claimed over 1,900 lives and cost over $1 billion in damage. It was the strongest storm ever recorded in the region. And just a month after Bopha would hit the Philippines, Hurricane Sandy would make landfall on the east coast of the United States. And Hurricane Sandy would do an outstanding $70 billion worth of damage and claim over 285 lives over a range of 8 countries. And while all of this is going on, the number of people who are willing to believe in the end of the world was growing and growing. And amidst the chaos, this minor media company, these little nobodies, these guys going by the name of Millennium Films, this movie company which had been producing, honestly, frankly, some pretty noticeably bad movies since the late 80s, they just out of the blue kind of decided to take on the big boys here. Challenging none other than, that's right, Sony Pictures themselves directly. And when I say challenging them directly, I mean Millennium Films purchased the rights to a script nearly identical to the script Sony Pictures had just signed on to mere weeks before, in the same month of the same year, slated to produce the same or nearly identical movie and release at nearly the same time. That's a bold move. The month was March. The ink was hot. And the race, boys, it was on. And it cannot be understated how similar these movies are. They both feature the White House being sieged, the president being held hostage, and the president's bodyguard having to storm the White House, save the president, and reestablish order to the country. Both of the spec scripts were purchased in the same month of the same year, in March of 2012. A spec script is a script that's written, uncommissioned, and uncompromised to be made into a movie. And James Vanderbilt wrote the script that would be picked up by Sony Pictures. The other was written by first-time screenplay writers Creighton Rothenberger and Katrin Benedict, and it was picked up by the proverbial Millennium Films. Now, they were well aware that the other studio had basically signed the same movie. It suddenly now became a race as to who could cast, film, edit, and release the film first, because the first film would most assuredly have the first punch. Anything after that could easily be looked at as a ripoff. There could be only one winner. Olympus Has Fallen would premiere first in March of 2013, with White House Down following after in the end of June, trying to get those extra patriotic views, for the 4th of July. Notably, both movies did well. Olympus Has Fallen premiered to a highly successful box office return of $170 million, whereas White House Down came in with a very respectable 205. Now, both of these studios had a 3-movie deal that was hanging in the air, kind of resting on the success of the movies. But at the end of the day, Olympus Has Fallen is the one that got signed on for the 3-movie deal. Now, with the $205 million box office, that's a good box office. It's got good reviews. Why did Olympus Has Fallen actually get signed on for the 3-movie deal while White House Down got left in the dust? Like I said, both movies were commercially viable vehicles, but with the basics of both being so similar, it really meant that there was only interest in signing one of these two movies for that oh-so-sweet, oh-so-lucrative 3-movie deal. And while White House Down did do $30 million more in the box office, the actual comparative production cost of the movies made this one a no-brainer for execs. You see, White House Down had premiered its movie with a budget of $150 million and a box office return of $205. That's good money. That's good money on any day, especially when we're considering residuals and future returns. But Olympus Has Fallen had been produced for a mere $70 million and had seen a box office return of $170. That's a 250% return at the box office. That's before residuals, that's before streaming, that's bananas is what that is. And the execs felt so too. Both viable vehicles, but Olympus secured its slot as a multi-movie franchise by proving that it could tango just as well for half as much. Now let's get down to our bad movie breakdown, shall we? Olympus Has Fallen is a 2013 movie that cost $70 million to produce. It made an outstanding $170 million at the box office. And although that number might be slightly deflated, the movie's leading star Gerard Butler did later sue the production, claiming that they had understated the revenue by $17.5 million. That suit, however, was settled, so we're just going to say $170 million for now. The movie, of course, stars Gerard Butler, as well as Aaron Eckhart, Morgan Freeman, and others. The movie was produced by Millennium Films and was directed by Antonia Fuqua. It was written by Creighton Rothenberger and Katrin Benedict. Although, once again, I must decide as John S. Green filed a lawsuit claiming that Rothenberger stole his cast of characters and story concept. But that suit also was eventually settled amicably for a mere $175,000, with Rothenberger retaining the writing credits. So, the movie premiered to mixed reviews, critics noting it to be both gruesomely and unnecessarily violent, while also managing to be somewhat suspenseful. Olympus Has Fallen has a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a score of 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 4.7 out of 5 on Amazon. And 89% of Google users like this movie? Olympus Has Fallen stars Gerard Butler as the man with a mission, the always acute and only occasionally confused.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
The President's Bodyguard and Best Man, Mike Banning. Aaron Eckhart stars as the only president who can shrug off his wife's death, the death of half of his friends, his countrymen, his colleagues, and, well, all just singing that tomorrow's gonna be a bright new day. The secretly psychotic, the emotionless shell of a human being, the Commander-in-Chief, President Benjamin Asher.
Next up, we have Morgan Freeman as the man with a plan, the soon-to-be president, Speaker Trumbull.
I want to speak to the caterers, the choreographers, and to the people who make those tiny pieces. You know the ones. The little ones, already put together, just bite-sized, and on a bagel.
Sir, are you canceling the 4th of July celebration?
No, I'm not canceling Ash's 4th of July celebration. I'm just keeping it warm for him. Because you see, just like a presidency, when a pizza's on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime.
Angela Bassett as the only serviceable female actor in this movie. See her servicing her serviceability as Secret Service Director Lynn Jacobs.
Finley Jacobson as the kid who is almost Kevin McAllister with high calibers. The always established but quickly abandoned side plots. Oops, down the laundry chute with ya. It's Connor.
Dylan McDermott, the frequently foreshadowed frenemy of the state.
How much does a bad movie cost nowadays anyway? $60, $70 million?
It's the man on the inside, Gerard Judas, Dave Forbes.
Next we have Rick Young as Parker Kang, who needed a rename to make him seem more main game and less lame so he could hack the mainframe.
Are you happy with yourself? Really happy with that one? He wasn't even the one doing the hacking, by the way. Milana Leo was the hacker.
We have Milana Lang as Kim Chi, a pretty Asian hacker lady who can press all the buttons on a keyboard if you let her. Just, give her time. I mean, she's from North Korea. She's never even seen a computer before. She had to practice on a piece of driftwood. But she's good. She's good. Just give her a chance, I promise. She'll blow something up before the movie is over.
No. No, you still have to actually tell them the name of the character. Her name's not Kimchi, it's Lim. She blew herself up in the helicopter, I guess.
Oh, so you could say Lim's limbs flew limitlessly through the sky.
I mean, I wouldn't, but I guess you could. Next we have Melissa Leo as Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, working for the Republic until she can't, with one president, held at gunpoint, the undurable, problematically patriotic Ruth McMillan. And justice for all.
And finally, Rhoda Mitchell as Leah, your proverbial Nurse Jackie without the power complex. I mean like Nurse Ratchet, but without the power complex. Or like Nurse Margaret, but without the power complex.
I don't get it. I mean, what's the joke? She's a nurse? Which one's Nurse Margaret, anyway?
She's Hot Lips from MASH.
Never seen it.
You've never seen MASH? The 70s sitcom about the Army Hospital and the Korean War. Ran for 11 seasons. One of the most popular shows of all time.
Well, I'm aware of the show. I've just never seen it. And Hot Lips? I want to talk about Hot Lips. What kind of a name is Hot Lips?
It was the 70s.
Gross. I definitely don't think that would fly nowadays. So yeah, Leia's a nurse. Moving on.
Alrighty, with cast crew and lawsuits out of the way, let's get down to some bread and butter, shall we? Let's get into some reviews from the internet.
Now, like always, we pulled a 5-star review and a 1-star review from the annals of the internet just for you. And this time, do we have a doozy for you, but let's save the best for last, shall we? Let's start off with our 5-star review. So first up, we have a review titled, Great Movies for Those Who Like Action, by The Door to One. Great movie, one of the best I've seen recently. Gerard Butler is one of my favorite actors and obviously outstanding performance by Morgan Freeman. But I do have to admit that the special effects could use some work, and like most of the American movies, too much patriotism. Easy up, men, but a great watch with friends, family, and even your girl, if she likes hardcore action movies. And I think they should change the bad guys for once. It's always North Korea, China, or Russia. Let's make a change, people. Put some other countries in once in a while. And Rick Yoon does an outstanding villain, no mistake there, since his performance on 007. Awesome, either way.
And for our 1-star review today, I have a remarkably short review entitled One of the Worst Movies Ever by Cyric18. Cyric's review reads,
The people that made this did bad, and they should Feel bad. Unbelievable story, logical flaws, and improbable scenario. Bad acting. It's insulting to the United States military, Secret Service, and all the good men and women that serve. Save 2 hours of your life by doing something better than watching this excrement on film. Unfortunately, this site requires 10 lines for a review, so the rest will just be gibberish in order to simulate the plot of this movie. Blah, 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 boom. Lots of bullets. More blah.
But those goofball opinions don't matter. What really matters is this bad movie, this little bad movie right here, is this bad movie for you? And well, my friends, Olympus Has Fallen is a fantastic bad movie for anyone looking for an action-packed patriotic thriller that gives zero fucks as far as developing a seemingly possible or in any way logically conceivable story is concerned. It is misogynistic and eager to torture or kill any inconvenient female character that may get in its way. The plot uniquely somehow manages to be paper-thin while also spending unnecessary amounts of effort in developing itself. A plot somehow rationalized by insecurity, prejudice, and of course, what else but
Asian Ninja Warriors.
The movie has an insanely high body count, a staggering 168, making a constant, non-stop
Bam! You! Right to the face! You're dead! Bam! You!
That starts 20 minutes in and runs for an hour 40 non-stop, with a quality amount of cringe alongside its numerous headshots and explosions. Olympus Has Fallen only fails in the fact that it takes itself way too seriously, making the stakes unreasonably high, as well as the aforementioned body count. It features only mild absurdity, only a little bad acting. It does have a few memorable bad lines, but not enough to truly excel in any silly or lighthearted ways. And with that all out of the way, why don't we move on to the analysis, shall we?
Alright everyone, welcome to it. This is the first movie in the ring for our versus match this 4th of July. We have Olympus Has Fallen. And this movie, it starts off with some overhead flyby shots of Shreveport, Louisiana's Kisatchie National Forest, and it's all mixed with some vaguely patriotic music. We get these snow-filled trees and what we assume is supposed to be Camp David, or Haikatoken as it's officially known, I guess. Although, just to be honest, I've never heard it called that. It's the president's official country retreat, his, home away from home, and just in case the snowy trees and soft blue lighting weren't enough, the actual lodge itself is just adorned with Christmas lights. And this is all to let us know that it is the most wonderful time of year. It is Christmas for the president, and to celebrate the season, he's having himself a festive little boxing bout with his best bud and bodyguard, Mike. And this is where we are introduced to President Benjamin Asher and his head of presidential detail, Secret Service agent, Mike Manning. And these two, they have a special relationship. I might even go so far as to say that they love each other more than their respective spouses, because really, really deep down, Olympus Has Fallen is just a brooding love drama disguised as a political thriller. There are actually quite a few homoerotic die-hard-themed romance bodyguard action thrillers out there, and Olympus Has Fallen definitely fits along other mainstays of the genre. Movies like Whitney Houston's The Bodyguard or White House Down, just to name a few. So, down in the basement of Camp David, in full boxing gear, in a full-size boxing ring, Mike and Ben are sparring with each other. They're also kind of throwing just like a little bit of small banter each other's way, And in the background, there's this TV, and if you pay attention, it's tuned to like a local news channel that's reporting about the blizzard outside. And if you're watching, you can vaguely make out the newscaster as he picks up like a large clump of snow. And it seems to be indicating to the cameraman that yes indeed, this is a big storm. Look at this clump of snow. You don't get clumps of snow like that from small storms, this big storm. This, I suppose it's supposed to be some gentle foreshadowing for the events to come. But honestly, I do always really appreciate it when movies take the time to put in little details like this in the background. Even if they are grainy and not really something that you'd notice, I appreciate the little scene dressings and the attention to detail, like for sure. So suddenly out of nowhere, Forbes rushes in, another member of the president's protection detail, and he interrupts the sparring match just as Mike is starting to beat the crap out of Ben. 10 minutes, says Forbes. And he's saying 10 minutes to let them know that I suppose we have 10 minutes before we're heading out. Ben chastises Mike, saying that he's not supposed to hit the president, to which Mike just playfully responds, I know. So Mike is warned about the oncoming storm, and it's looking bad, but drivable. We find out that it is not just Christmas time, apparently, but tonight is actually Christmas itself. And this is where we get to meet Mrs. Asher. She is the First Lady to the United States of America, and she's just yet another inconvenient woman in a movie made for men. And we're about to run into one of these sad plot contrivances that we see so often. You see it a lot in kids' movies, and you see it a lot in action movies, where logically, just logically, like, there should have to be at least a few women around somewhere in this universe. Someone has to be somebody's mom or wife or something, just for people to exist.
I just feel like, geez, God bless them. They just don't really know how to write female characters, and it'd be hard to try and learn. All of a sudden, how to write a woman? That's complicated, and shucks, they just, for all the love in their hearts, they tuck those characters just gently under the rug, or, nudge them off screen, but sometimes you just toss them in a hole somewhere to die, or off of a bridge, where they won't be an inconvenience to the plot. It's not that they're bad writers, or bad people. It's just that they're bad writers and bad people.
So we get back to the president and the first family, where the president, he's getting himself gathered. He's trying to get all ready so he and the fam can head to a big important Christmas fundraiser. What's the fundraiser for? That's not important. What is important is the fundraiser. Now, getting to that fundraiser is what we have to do, and making sure we're all dressed to impress while we're there is very important. So, Margaret Asher, the First Lady, she's trying to look her best, kind of muddling over which pair of earrings to choose, trying to really figure out which pair of earrings say commanding, but not the type of commanding that's actually going to make commands, or do, or say anything. Or do the long earrings say that I'm a tertiary character with nothing to add to the plot, or do the short ones convey that better? She tries to ask her husband for help, or at least his opinion. President Asher suggests the short earrings, as does Mike the bodyguard, who arrives just in time to add his 2 cents and to allow Maggie to at least have half a dozen lines in this Shockle movie. She takes the brief moment she has in front of the camera to just back that big exposition dump truck back up. Just back that big exposition dump truck back up and just let it loose. Dumping plenty of praise for the president so that we all know how great he is. She talks about how he was able to get America off of foreign oil, and then just immediately goes into a quip about how Asher can't even help her pick a pair of earrings for the fundraiser. The foreign oil line seems to be a direct reference to America's transition in 2011 from being a net importer to a net exporter of petroleum products. And after making sure that everyone knows that the president is responsible for such an important shift and that he's like a super cool dude, she tosses his advice and goes with the long earrings. Long earrings definitely say pretty background character that we're never going to hear from again. So the two of them, they have a child. He seems to be your quintessential nerdy 12-year-old boy. And frankly, he could have been ripped right out of the pages of Pagemaster. Mike gets along with him, though, which is good because he's essentially his elevated babysitter. The kid's name is Connor, and he seems pretty disengaged from the whole Christmas fundraiser plan. He's more interested in playing Uncharted 3 online. Mike, however, being the reasonable one, he actually stands up and takes the fatherly role, turning off the game and telling Connor it is time to get ready. Connor asks his dad if he can ride with Mike, because Mike's cool and who wouldn't want to ride with Mike? And he, of course, he agrees. How could he not? Look at Connor, he's so cute. He's so cute, little Connor. Just being a little punk, little playing his video games and being a little pain and never actually adding anything to the story. But his dad doesn't care, and he tells Connor to ask Mike, because Mike's the boss. This clearly establishes the dynamic between the two of them, and Mike can't say no to the little dork. He doesn't care if it's going to mess up the whole seating order. He is, of course, going to let Connor ride with him. To balance out the seating arrangement and to make all of this work, he tells an otherwise inconsequential lackey named Diaz that he's going to be riding with the president and the first lady. He then instructs another lackey, Forbes, to stay behind and watch the fort, something that Forbes is all too happy to do. He just kind of announces to everybody that he's gonna stay back. He's gonna watch Breaking Bad. Yeah, Breaking Bad. He's gonna finish up Breaking Bad, cozying up by the fire, just taking in some season 5. Because I did look up the time that this is actually happening, and yeah, this is pretty much season 5 of Breaking Bad. So yeah, Forbes is gonna just sit back and enjoy that show. Mike grabs out his radio, and he radios in some sort of code to dispatch right before they all head out to this big fundraiser. Mike radios out,
Mustang, this is Big Top. Bringing out the full package. Let's go.
I'm not making any of this shit up either, I swear to fucking God, that's the fucking code they use. It's unbelievable. Which, by the way, that means that Mike is Big Top, and that President Asher is the full package. Just so that everyone fully realizes how ridiculous that code is. So, Mike Banning, Big Top, codename Big Top, President Asher, codename the full package. Now that Big Top and the full package are ready, the presidential motorcade rolls out 5 deep in what is honestly just like a medium dusting of snow. This is not a real snowstorm. It's like more of a mild inconvenience kind of storm. Like, there's snow. Their windshield wipers aren't even on high, though. Like, we live in Spokane, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, and we don't get crazy amounts of snow, honestly. I know a lot of places in Middle America get a lot more than we do, frankly. And a lot of times the East Coast gets a lot more than we do. But this is not a snowstorm. And honestly, no one's driving slow either. No one seems concerned. So we transition over to the inside of the presidential motorcade here. And this is where Mike is speaking some secret agent jargon into his earpiece. Then we're just all of a sudden we're on the go. He radios out,
ETA Morgan residence, 22 minutes. Keep it tight, everybody.
And I guess that means stick together, but I think that kind of goes without saying when it goes to riding in a motorcade. I mean, they're all driving real close together, which if it's icy out might not be a good idea, but either way, a big old convoy is now on the way to the fundraiser. Connor, foreshadowing the past that he's likely going to be in the movie, he won't wear his seatbelt. Mike threatens him with some good old-fashioned physical violence, which gets the kid to listen, or at least proxy physical violence, as Mike tells Connor,
Hey, O'Neill will punch you in the nuts if you don't straighten up. You keep it 180 degrees awareness?
I thought it was 360.
Well, how many emergency exits in the Oval Office?
8.
How many feet from the Oval Office to the Peacock elevator?
116?
What about from the doors? Closing. The elevator. How long does it take to get to the Peacock?
4 minutes.
Security cameras. How many have audio?
Oh, only the ones in the common area?
How many cameras is that, Connor?
I don't remember. 4?
You don't remember 4? You don't remember 4? Is that what you're going with? Is that your final answer, Connor?
No, I think so.
You think so? You think so, Connor? Okay, well, let's try this again. Terrorists, they've stormed the White House. They've got your dad, and they're holding him hostage, okay, Connor?
Okay.
Okay, so your dad's being held at gunpoint, and these terrorists, they're gonna blow his f***ing head off, unless you tell them how many cameras in the common area have audio.
4?
4? Are you sure, Connor? If you're wrong, your dad is f***ing dead. You get that, don't you, Connor? If you're wrong, your dad is f***ing dead. So how many cameras, Connor? How many cameras in the common area have audio?
4.
4. That's right, kid. Not bad. This kid's got it, right?
Yeah, we're gonna make a Secret Service agent out of him yet.
You got that right, O'Neill.
The First Lady does voice her concerns over the weather, but Ben is just way too worried about his speech to listen to any of that nonsense. He's so busy, in fact, that he responds to his wife's comments about shaving her head bald with just a basic, "That sounds good." We hear some anonymous agent on the radio saying,
It's getting worse out there. Bring it down to 5.
5? Like 5 what? 5 miles an hour? That doesn't even make sense, and it does not matter, because all of that voice acting there, it's just voice over, so there's no real way for the motorcade to drive more safely in response to the voiceover, so yeah, the cars just drive on in the slightly more snowy snow, and again, it doesn't really look that snowy to me. We'll take Mrs. Asher's word on it, and we'll go back inside the president's motorcade where we can check up on Mags and President Ben. And guess what? Mags, she's got a present for Ben. It's his Christmas present. She presents him this little box that he opens up, and oh my gosh, it's his grandfather's watch. Which, that's not really a present from you then, is it, Mags? I mean, if that's his grandfather's watch, that's kind of his property already. I don't know if you found it and then are re-gifting it, or how that came about, but either way, they do share a loving kiss over it, and Ben asks about the head shaving idea, obviously sharing the same obsession with Ruby Rose that we all have, and now it's Ben's turn to give a Christmas gift. He pulls out a long, slim rose gold box, you know, the kind that might have a diamond necklace or even a pair of keys to a new car. But we never find out what Ben was actually going to give her, because right at the moment that he's handing her the present, the car begins to crash. And this whole crash scene is just... It's honestly just so inexplicable to me that I just cannot even. First, it is very unclear to me what is actually causing this crash. I've watched this over and over and over again, and it seems as though there's one single frame of screen time in which something can be seen obstructing the lower section of the lead car's window. Let's address the road, shall we? Okay, so we see the road as the president is driving. We are watching the specific segment of the bridge the president is about to go over before he crashes, and the road looks clear. And obviously there's some weirdly specific fear-mongering here regarding black ice, but beyond the fact that yes, I understand black ice is dangerous, the road is straight. There's not even an incline to it. There is no slant to either direction, and so it is just a completely flat, straight road with no curve and no turn. And yeah, they're going over a bridge, but this is also a pretty modern bridge with heavy-duty concrete guardrails. So here's what happens. Something smashes the window of the lead car. The lead car brakes, but the car's ABS system just must be ice cream now, and the car's studs and traction are just grape jello because the car slides like no tomorrow. Just completely forget this is a $500,000 car that leads the Beast. Beast is, of course, the completely insanely overhauled military-grade Cadillac that the president actually hauls himself around in. So what we are to believe is that somehow this marvel of engineering just slides around on this completely flat and even road like some sort of slip and slide, sliding into the president's car, then smashing into the guard railing, crashing right through the concrete guard railing, right through the rebarb, right through all the support, like it was just made out of styrofoam, while the president's car, the Beast, the $1.5 million car, designed completely around safety and security and impenetrability, while that car, being hit by its lead car, it just starts to turn and spin, and now everyone is spinning around like bumper cars, and wouldn't you know it, the president's car just slides right into that perfect spot, made in the reinforced concrete barrier when the lead car somehow magically crashed through it despite, the retaining steel, the embedded rebarb, physics, and the president's car followed in a perfect path and just followed right into that one spot. And the president, I like I said, I cannot with the improbability of it, but anywho, we'll continue on. Okay, so the president's car slides into that perfect spot, but not completely through that spot. It just kind of janks itself in there for a moment, conveniently hoisting itself there, perched in that oh-so-classic Looney Tunes style, just about to fall off the Grand Canyon position that cars are they're just known for getting stuck in that position. If you drive a car too close to a cliff, that is your real worry. It's not just falling off the cliff. It's going to get hoisted just so that it's always 50% on and off, and then, a bird will decide your fate. And that's essentially where the president is now, in that classic Looney Tunes kind of position, hoisted there. And it's just long enough for Gerard Butler to get out of his car, stop his car without skidding. No spinning, no crashing there. What black ice are you even talking about? No. Well, what are you... Ice? What are you talking about, ice? No, Gerard Butler just stops his car on the completely unicy road, and just a nice confident stop from full speed, Same road the president was driving on, exact same speed, in the same weather conditions, but there's no time to worry about that logic now. Gerard, he rushes over, and he just rips open the door. And this is, again, where we just get into some really contrived logic. You have to have a lot going on to really be able to believe this, I feel. So, Gerard, he rips open the door, and what is going on? But no, oh my gosh, the First Lady, despite her seatbelt being visibly attached, despite the fact the car was only in a minor collision, at low speed, she has somehow, apparently, been knocked unconscious. She has blood all over her face. She has a large open wound visible on her forehead. Surely, from this horrific low-speed collision. She flew forward with her seatbelt on, banged her head against the foam chair rest in front of her, and that has apparently, hitting her head against that padded foam headrest, has knocked her unconscious. And what's this? Oh no, but the $1.5 million Cadillac won. The just insanely over-engineered vehicle that the president hauls himself around with. Not only has it just slid completely out of control, not only have the ABS systems failed, not only have the studded tires failed, but what is this? The seatbelt is stuck. Yeah, the seatbelt that completely failed to save this First Lady from her crash, did nothing to help prevent her from receiving head trauma, is now preventing her from escaping her vehicle. Another agent tries to free her from here, from the other side, but wouldn't you know it, that door is stuck. So yeah, ABS system, no. Studs, traction, no, nothing like that. Seatbelt stuck, doors stuck, everything's stuck, and Mike, he tries to yank the president free, but oh no, the president's seatbelt is stuck too. Yeah, honestly. So Mike, he struggles with the belt. What kind of a statement is this trying to make about seatbelts? I just cannot. What is the statement here? I don't know. Anyway, so Mike, he tries to yank the president free, but his belt is stuck, and Mike, he struggles with the belt, unsure of what to do. He fumbles around, just wasting an unbelievable amount of time before he finally grabs his knife. The first thing he should have done, and cuts the seatbelt, throwing the president out of the car and onto an icy road before the car just wily coyotes itself off the side of the bridge, falling through the ice, and then apparently into a watery tomb. And you might wonder why, geez. Doesn't anyone jump in and try and save the First Lady or the driver or Diaz, the person that Mike kind of sentenced to death when he moved around the seating arrangement? Did either of those agents try and save the First Lady? What happened to them? Were they just fully unconscious too? And the answer is no, don't worry about it. Stop worrying about it. No one tries to jump in and save them. No one tries to save the First Lady of the United States. Neither of the passengers try and save her. And no, they don't make any effort themselves. And you might ask, well, doesn't that mean that Gerard Butler kind of sentenced that guy Diaz to an icy death when he told him he was riding the presidential detail? And yeah, it does. And Gerard apparently only had time enough to save one of them, and the president was more important. And it's not like he could have just taken his knife out and cut the seatbelt and thrown the president out and then grabbed the First Lady and then saved her in the same fashion in a short, very remarkable, easy maneuver. But, let's not worry about that, because honestly, they found the role of the First Lady so inconvenient that if you were to watch the original trailer for this movie, you can watch her die in that trailer in the first 40 seconds. And it's so unbelievable to me that you would kill off the First Lady of the United States in the trailer of your movie, but I guess that's a choice you can go with. I mean, if you really have that hard of a time, I guess, writing female characters, you can just kill them all off. Make sure that any unnecessary or inconvenient female characters just get killed off in the first few minutes of the movie, and then you don't have to deal with them. And Gerard Butler, by saving the president and the principal driving plot element, and his overriding love interest, has ensured us that we can finally have the political action thriller that we all wanted without any of the stupid girls getting in the way. And I mean, do you know how inconvenient it would have been to have to figure out what to do with the First Lady for the rest of the movie? And I mean, they already came up with the earrings bit, and that was essentially Shakespeare. Now you want them to write more lines for a woman just because she's like the First Lady or something? No, they just did what most writers do, sadly. They took the female character who's logically necessary to the story and just, gently chucked him off a bridge. So the three other people in the car die as well. But President Asher, he is thankfully alive. And with all those inconvenient women out of the way, I guess we can just cue the sad music. That transitions to patriotic music and call it a day, boys. No, we don't need a funeral or nothing like that. We've got a movie to do. So 7 months later, Mike is sleeping in his home in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that's immediately where we're going. And he wakes up and he apologizes to his wife, Leia, for making her go to a barbecue by herself. He acts all morose and distraught, I think, to give the impression that he's, still deeply impacted from, letting the First Lady fall into an icy river where she died a horrific death directly in front of her son and husband. But It's Mike. And Mike, he wasn't ever like a Christmas person or anything. He's always had rough Christmases, As a kid, his dad would dress up as Glinda the Good Witch, in the spirit of the holiday. And Glinda, she'd drink her Christmas schnapps, and she'd promise little Mikey that she'd bring him a good dad one day. One that wouldn't drink as much, and one that could fit into her tutu. And Glinda never, ever did, and so Mikey's always kind of been sad around Christmas time. He's gotten older. He still looks up the sky every Christmas Eve, and he wishes to Glinda, but alas, his wishes never came true. Because his Christmas wishes never came true, Mikey's always had sour feelings toward the holiday, and it just seems like every year something goes wrong. It's just like, yeah, sure, sometimes people die when you work in security. It happens. It goes with the job. But like every year, every Christmas, at a certain point, you just can't help but wonder, maybe it was it you? Maybe you're just sloppy around the holidays, These people keep dying, and it's always around Christmas, and so you request Christmas off. First time you've ever requested a day off, and the office is like, request denied. And so you have to work on Christmas. And then on top of having to work on Christmas, the first time you've ever requested a day off, on top of that, what happens? First lady dies. It's like, maybe it's a little bit your fault, but you're also like, geez, I'm just emotionally wrung out. So I'm just going to stare at the wall and barely speak to emphasize my emotional conflict a little bit right here. But it's also not my fault because I requested that day, And I feel like my wife, Fifu, she maybe should understand that. And Leia just doesn't quite get it. Leia, by the way, is Mike's wife. And Leia and Mike are going to go watch the news and see another piece of foreshadowing as the news anchor is talking about North Korean troops moving towards the demilitarized zone, alluding to the possibility of a conflict with North Korea. But Mike and Leia, they have better things to talk about, like the party that Mike missed out on. Mike, he's still too focused on the news to really listen, and in all fairness, the few lines she does have to say to him are just nonsense. They're thinly veiled as what I can only assume what the writers felt would pass as girlfriend talk. And again, I know it's just really confusing to write lines for women. I mean, what with their periods and everything, what do girls even talk about?
Why didn't they just hire one female writer? You should get Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep should write this movie.
Sir, bite your tongue. I think you hear not what you say. A female writer? Amidst the men? What about her monthlies? Liable to attract bears from what I've read. And what of the work week? I shall hardly think any of the men shall be able to focus on their muses with a woman in their midst. I mean, come on, man. Can you think of the madness? Female writers confounding the midst of some of the most manly devotees of the written word. Men like George Eliot or Currer Bells or Topper Mills, sir. I think, frankly, you should be put to death.
Hey, f*** you! Get your f***ing hands off of me! No, f*** you!
Sir, I'm sorry, but your talk of hiring female writers, all of this discussion of periods and Currer Bell.
But that was you! You were the one making the period jokes!
Sir, I'm sorry, but we don't use the word period around here. If you would kindly refer to it as her Aunt Flo, or the British invasion, or the little red clown with a bleeding nose, that would be much appreciated, sir.
You motherfucker, you just called it a period!
I'm sorry, sir, but all of this period talk is just terribly dangerous and unstable rhetoric. A rhetoric of a particularly subversive variety, I'm afraid. And to ensure that you don't mention any of this female writer nonsense to the public, we're just going to have to, well, you know.
You boys are dumb. The movie had 2 writers, and one of them were female, so just so you know, you guys are idiots. I guess I'm gonna go fish Raoul out the river. Mike makes plans to go see a movie with Leia, while she tries to one-up him with plans of a vacation somewhere beachside. They didn't have their honeymoon after all. I mean, seriously, Mike, no honeymoon?
I couldn't go on a honeymoon. I was working guarding the President of the United States.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little, well, it just comes off, I don't know, a little gay?
It's not gay. It's doing my job. Guarding the President. of the United States, watching him while he sleeps and making sure he's safe, and make sure that he's still breathing. My head against his chest. It's totally not gay, just totally not gay. Super heterosexual security detail watching the President of the United States, which is my job.
No honeymoon, though?
I was doing my job.
Well, honeymooner, no, we find out that Mike is working at the Treasury Department now, and it's been 7 long months since he's seen his main man, Ben, who we are to believe is still mourning the loss of his beard. Although we never really see him sad over it, and Mike is massively crestfallen. He runs into some of his old buddies, and he takes the opportunity to ask them about the Koreans that will be meeting with the president shortly. They don't bite, and they leave Mike after hassling him a little bit. Grumpily, Mike tells Lynn, the Secret Service director, that he wants back into the president's detail. Desk jobs are not real jobs. Not for real men. Not for guys like
Mike Manning.
Mike says that he wants back in, and Lynn tells Mike that he's a good agent. But President Asher just doesn't want to see him right now. He doesn't want Mike around, because he doesn't want to be reminded of that dreadful day. Mike asks about Connor. And frankly, Connor's just been stuck in the middle of this whole situation, because after Ben's wig and Connor's mom fell into the river, it just took the whole family dynamic down into the icy depths with her, kicking Mike out and disrupting Connor's whole family life. Lynn tells Mike that Connor misses him, that he's still running around the White House like Macaulay Culkin up in there, and it's just set up for a buddy action movie with Connor and Mike that sadly we'll never get to see. Patriotic music begins to play once again, and it's accompanied with some shots of the White House. Walk-by shots of security guards with dogs, everyone being super on alert. Super patriotic. We switch over to the White House interior for a brief moment where we meet back up with President Ben and the Commander-in-Chief, President Asher. Ben puts on his wife's last Christmas present, his grandfather's watch, which, again, must be disappointing because it was a really shitty gift. I mean, at least buy him, a new watch or something. Don't give him something that's already in his family. And President Ben, President Asher, he's depressed and despondent, just really brought down by his dead wife's poor taste in Christmas presents. And Benjamin, he dresses up for his big meeting, and while Ben is getting all ready for his meeting with the South Korean Prime Minister, we switch back over to Mike, who's walking to his car in super, super cool sunglasses. Mike gets in. He takes off the super cool sunglasses, and that's when it all hits him. The pain. The horror. He has brief flashes of the Christmas before, brooding in his car, replaying that night's horrible event. Mike calls his wife Leia, the hospital nurse, but she's busy. It's a busy hospital, and so she misses Mike's call. Mike seems to be having a bit of an emotional moment, but sadly he's just going to have to toughen up as Leia's busy, and won't be able to save him with her secret waifu powers. Speaker of the House Allen, played by Morgan Freeman, he's briefing the president on the situation at the Korean border. They want America to threaten military action against North Korea, push them away from South Korea's border, and to also stop their nuclear testing. It's a fair request, Allen agrees. Ruth, the Secretary of Defense, she thinks that the U.S. should bluff, but has doubts about North Korea and the possibility that they might call said bluff. Allen, played by Morgan Freeman, doesn't want to bluff, but the president doesn't want to start a war. The Vice President Charlie agrees with Ruth, and nothing is settled, and we'll just have to call this meeting concluded. This movie sure loves its montages. So right now we have a montage of a police convoy as they escort the South Korean Prime Minister to the White House, a montage of a big plane flying overhead, and a montage of Mike bored at his boring desk job. But almost out of nowhere, it's almost as if Mike can sense the police convoy. The Prime Minister arrives at the White House and is received by the Secret Service. Despite how mundane this all may sound, I really have to emphasize this is a remarkably loud scene. There are sirens and plane engines and very intense patriotic music all playing alongside these weird shots of South Korean security detail driving way too fast down public arterial roads before finally transitioning to shots of a Lockheed C-130 Hercules flying overhead. Then, of course, Mike in his office. All very loud. It's very, very loud. The security detail arrives. The White House security acknowledges their arrival. The gates open. They drive in. And as the limos are pulling up in the parking alongside the front entrance, we can see several unknowns emerge. all people working for the South Korean Prime Minister, and who is that? Oh my gosh, well look! All done binging Breaking Bad, Forbes has apparently decided to go back to work, and it looks like now he's working as a security personnel for K-pop star and South Korean Prime Minister Kim Tae-woo.
It's Lee Tae-woo. The actor's name is Lee Tae-woo.
Okay. All done binging Breaking Bad, Forbes has apparently decided to go back to work, and it looks like now he's working as a security personnel for K-pop star and South Korean Prime Minister Lee Jin-woo.
First of all, it is Lee Tae-woo. Second, what even is the joke here, Alan? I don't get it. Is the joke supposed to be that you can't remember simple names? Do you think the listeners are actually going to be familiar with either of those artists? Like, is that the joke? That the actor's names sound kind of like a K-pop artist's name? I don't get it.
K-pop is silly.
Eye roll.
Okay. It's Lee Tae-woo. So, South Korean Prime Minister Lee Tae-woo introduces us to his head of security, Mr. Park. They are super best friends, and Tae trusts him implicitly. We transition over to the inside of the White House, where we see the Secret Service guiding the Prime Minister to the Oval Office. This is essentially where we're publicly reintroduced to Forbes, who is now a proud part of the private sector. And it's here that the South Korean Prime Minister and the President start beginning to discuss the whole North Korean problem with the army arriving to the demilitarized zone. We flash back to the C-130 Hercules back in the sky, and it's flying low and steady. Now, though, it's being tailed by a pair of American F-22 Raptors. It seems as though somebody actually gives a crap finally. Static cuts in as the Americans try to radio the unidentified flight.
Hey, I'm sorry, fellas. Ed, looks like that you came a long ways and all. But as far as I can tell, your flight is very unidentified, and I'm sure that you're just here to see America's beautiful, majestic freedoms, but I'm afraid I'm gonna have to inform you that, well, technically there, fellas, you are in restricted airspace, and I'm gonna have to blow you all to Kathmandu if you don't turn around right now.
So the plane itself is not on a scheduled flight path. I know, shocker. And is unidentified. And again, it's just super surprising. And, oh my gosh, a third massive surprise, also flying in restricted airspace. And how it made it this far, unnoticed, it's just so beyond me. But I guess it just flew low and under the radar. I mean, I would just say let's go with that. Because we have to. But I might have, kind of obsessed over the absurdity of this particular detail just a little bit too much. And the nonsensical, seemingly impossible nature of this flight. So, let's get into it, shall we? Inside the plane, we see the pilots. And I'm sorry to say, I'm just gonna have to spoil the big surprise here for anyone with Asian blindness. Pilots of the plane are Korean, North Korean specifically. And that makes this whole imaginary flight just a little bit harder to swallow. Mainly because they would have to fly from North Korea to Washington, D.C., which is just insane. And I'm sure you're wondering if that is even possible. If there's any dimension in which that would even be conceivably possible. Because I was wondering that. I was wondering that myself. Because it is a long, long flight. 5,964 nautical miles, just to be precise, and which, just to be fair, is 6,863 regular miles, or, if you live in any other part of the world that doesn't use the American standardized system, it's 11,045 kilometers. So, right off the bat, that does seem to become an issue, right? Because they are flying a C-130 Hercules. Now, I looked it up. A C-130 Hercules has a max flight distance of 4,500 nautical miles, and I'll spare you the conversion to all those other metrics because what's really important here is that 5,964 is a bigger number than 4,500. So that means just to get there, they would have to refuel at least once in the air. Which, that could actually be possible. Not really. But if you really stretch your imaginations, if you really just believe in the magic, then maybe. So So if you want to believe in the magic and stretch your imaginations to its furthest, here's how this theoretical flight would have to go down for it to even be remotely possible. Okay, here's how it happens. The C-130 Hercules takes off from North Korea. It flies on a northeasterly path, crossing over China, crossing over Russia. Again, the trip is too long, but if they were to refuel over Russia, they would have just enough fuel to make it to the end of their no-return flight. So, we assume they refuel over Russia. They continue flying northeast, circling the globe, crossing in between Alaska and the North Pole, rounding about the northern portion of Canada, crossing over Nunavut until they reach Quebec, crossing over Quebec until they fly up over or right next to Ottawa, and just nobody in Ottawa apparently gives a f*** about this loud military plane flying 1,200 feet off the ground, which, honestly, I mean, that kind of checks. Ottawans don't give a f***. So it crosses over the carefree magical land of Ottawa, crossing over Lake Ontario, flying over New York, flying over Pennsylvania, where it keeps on flying right over Maryland, still no one giving a single f***, no one giving two f***s, nobody giving a f***ity f*** at all, until when finally it flies over Virginia, and where it finally makes it to Washington, D.C., where finally, someone gives a f***, a tiny, little insignificant f***, and sends 2 jets to go check on the situation. And mind you, this is a massively long flight. This should have been detected by American radar a long time ago. Like back when this T4 engine turboprop passed by Alaska, it should have been detected by Canada, by New York, by Pennsylvania, by Maryland, but no. Somehow this giant military passenger plane passes through all defenses, all detections. Does it have any sort of natural radar deflection built into its design, like, say, an F-117 Nighthawk? Nah, man. Not this plane. It don't need none of that fancy stuff. It's gonna make this 20-hour non-stop flight on pluck and luck alone, and I'm watching this, and I'm just like, how? How did North Korea possibly acquire this vehicle? And the best and only thing that I could come up with is that somehow North Korea manages to purchase a Lockheed C-130 Hercules off the black market. I know, a bit of a stretch maybe, but here's how it would go down. Maybe one of America's not-so-consistent allies just happens to sell one. Right, we'll say that Saudi Arabia sold one to Russia, who then in turn sold it to North Korea. North Korea, they equip that plane, and they fly it, and they refuel it, and then they continue to fly all the way around the world. Because, I mean, Korea it's so far away. It's so far away. It's about the furthest away it could possibly be, and they do not get detected at all. It is just smooth sailing all the way up until the point they finally make it to Washington, and only then are they finally noticed. And it's here that the big plane reveals itself to be an enemy aircraft. So, finally they've been detected over Washington, D.C. At last. Finally, someone has the senses to send someone out to maybe, go radio this plane and, just try and figure out what's going on. Maybe they're lost. Maybe the C-130 Hercules is just a little lost, and we're just going to send a couple Raptors out, and we'll just give them a nice little radio. So these F-22 Raptors show up. They tail this frickin' hulk of a plane, and they radio, telling them they're in restricted airspace. Because, obviously, and as they do, as they radio this plane, 2 panels open up under the cabin section of the C-130 Hercules, one on both sides, revealing files of railguns, which just release a barrage of gunfire that just rips into these 2 planes, tearing them apart. They fall, and they crash to the ground below. We see at least one of the pilots eject before his plane crashes, and unsure of what happens to the other pilot, we watch as unnamed Pilot 1 jettisons out of his jet, jetting forth into the sky, where we can only assume that his parachute ejects, and he lands safely, able to return home to play some Jet Set Radio Future. The pilot, totally safe. His F-22 Raptor, however, it suffers a much more tragic fate as it falls from the sky with no parachute to protect it whatsoever. And, it crashes into some house where it explodes, destroying the entire house in a column of fire, and probably incinerating some poor suburban family in the process, but...
But at least because it was the 4th of July, the whole family was there, you know. So it's not like Jimmy was at school and mommy died or daddy was off from work because of COVID. No, the whole family gets to go to heaven. Too dark? Yeah, probably, but there are going to be a lot of kills in this one, so it's going to be a little bit gory. So the Korean C-130 Hercules opens fire, shooting down those 2 jets as they crash into the ground below, and the president, he's alerted of the emerging situation, and is immediately rushed into the secret holding area located beneath the White House that exists for just such emergencies. Now, finally, a few fucks are given. More Raptors take flight, air support is finally on the way, the Secret Service start to secure the White House, and as some of the service members run the halls, others start busting out the high-powered weaponry. Grabbing sniper rifles, guards start lining the roof of the White House, taking defensive positions and preparing for the worst. We see secret anti-air turrets reveal themselves. Meanwhile, everyone of less consequence is being evacuated from the White House. Panic ensues in D.C. as the plane flies dangerously low. It begins opening fire on civilians with the same railguns it had previously used on the F-22 Raptors. Lines of gunfire rip into the street, concrete flying, tearing through the pedestrians. Mike sees the chaos from his office, and watching the terror and the bloodshed on the street, instinctively, he knows they're after his Ben. He runs out of his office. He has to save him. He has to save Ben. Death, carnage, and mayhem are everywhere as gunfire continues unabated, the giant plane unleashing hellfire upon the streets below. The carnage is massive. The machine gun fire, unending. Countless civilians and soldiers die as they are mowed down by the bullets. All measures against the C-130 having so far been diverted by the plane's own countermeasures. Its angel flares, if you will. Now outside, Mike, now in the middle of the carnage as he races to rescue the love of his life from the unspeakable terror, the C-130 rounds about the White House, continuing to unleash remarkably accurate ground fire from its side-mounted guns. It sinks hundreds and hundreds of rounds into the roof of the White House, killing all of the soldiers stationed on the rooftop, and more importantly, ripping holes through the American flag. Now, Gerard Butler can't see this, but he can sense it off-screen. Not shown on camera, Gerard Butler winces in pain as America's stars and stripes are defiled by a terrorist attack. Gerard stops. Off-camera. Still not shown in the movie, but I assure you 100% happening off-camera down in the street below. Gerard stops, looking up into the sky, and in his soul, in the core of his mind's eternal eye, he looks into the eyes of the pilot, and it's this off-screen unknown psychic battle that happens between Gerard and the pilot. This weakens the pilot's mental acuity. Meanwhile, the Air Force support from earlier arrives, a new pair of F-22 Raptors. This set, much less talkative, and really just ready to get down to some business. They fire upon the C-130 Hercules. But the C-130 fires another round of angel flares. But even their anti-missile countermeasures aren't enough this time. A missile makes contact with the tail of the Hercules, causing the tail to explode. The plane loses control, the left wing smashing into the Washington Monument as it starts to lose control. Now tailless, and one wing down, the Hercules spirals downward before crashing into the field in front of the White House and bursting into flames. The Washington Monument, having suffered significant structural damage, crumbles and begins to fall to the ground, the debris and rubble falling all around. Civilians try to run, but they can't. The concrete pieces falling all around them, tumbling to the ground, killing many more innocent, God-fearing, red-blooded American civilians. In the president's secret bunker, everyone is scrambling for information. The president is informed of the big plane's takedown. Ben, however, he's still worried about his son, and he continues to develop a plot thread that will never be fully actualized in the movie, as he tries to find out where Connor actually is. Outside, Mike is at the gates of the White House. Dead bodies lie everywhere, and Mike is still very eager to get inside, but not to break the rules and jump the gate or anything crazy like that. A sudden explosion near a bus causes everyone on the street to panic once more. While everyone is running away, Mike sees 2 men approaching the gate. He orders them to get down. Drawing his gun, they continue to approach the White House despite his very clear instructions. He shoots one, possibly because Mike is psychic, or possibly because he's Asian,
But in all fairness, Mike was right because the other quickly pulls a strap on his backpack, successfully detonating himself and blowing open a hole in the White House's outer fence. Which, in fairness, is very convenient for Mike. So, right on cue, every Asian person in the crowd turns coat, betraying their country, and is almost like the racism that led to the internment camps during World War I never really went away. Almost like we just buried it real deep so that we could develop it into a full-fledged movie 100 years later. Well, everyone betrays Johnny, and all of these incredibly well-armed Asian sleeper cell agents, some with machine guns, some with rocket launchers, they just start killing everyone. They start killing the remaining Secret Service members, but most importantly, they kill a dog. And that's how you know that they're bad guys. It's actually a really common coding thing used in movies. People who don't like or are mean to dogs will always turn out to be bad characters. Just in case you didn't know at this point. The terrorists are the bad guys and they don't like dogs and you shouldn't sympathize with them. So, some civilians who turn out to be terrorists don masks and enter the White House, while others on the lawn with guns and rocket launchers continue to terrorize the security outside. The Korean sleeper cell super secret Nazi agents enter the White House. They enter the White House, killing the Secret Service agents they meet along the way. Mike, following behind them, killing off terrorists as he goes along. So it's all just kind of like this little conga line of killing each other. And seriously, there is so much violence in this short scene alone. So much carnage and mayhem.
I know it's awesome!
You boys are dumb.
I'd say the body count is definitely in the 300 area by now, and Mike is just killing people outside, and inside the president's bunker, every Asian person except the prime minister breaks bad all at once. Just on cue, and they just start killing off people in the room. Forbes himself having his own little Walter White moment, pulling out a gun and thoughtlessly killing off a few of the security staff before turning his attention on the president himself, which did lead me to theorize, what if this wasn't Forbes' first attempt at assaulting the White House? In the very beginning of the movie, when the president's car goes sliding around ridiculously on the black ice as though it has no tread or traction of any kind and all the anti-lock brake systems don't work, the entire caravan goes careening off the road. What if that whole incident was actually Forbes' first attempt at assassinating the president? We already know that he went to South Korea immediately after that incident, where he supposedly then defected, becoming a North Korean loyalist. What if he was then employed to re-infiltrate the White House, hold the president hostage, retrieve the coveted nuclear code, and with those, finally force America to evacuate the remaining troops from the Korean border some 18 months after the incident we see in the beginning of the film? In the beginning of the movie, it is Forbes who tells the president that his motorcade is going to be leaving in 10 minutes, wanting to be sure that the president does in fact take the planned motorcade to the planned event at the planned time. We do know that Forbes would likely have access to the motorcade. And we also know that he himself is making sure that the president is ready, while also giving himself a soft excuse as to why he doesn't want to attend, asking the president if he can stay behind, where he's going to sit back, relax, and watch some Breaking Bad. And it's a bit ominous, don't you think? I mean, considering he's our big betrayer, our big man on the inside. This second incident is only 18 months after the first, by the way, and considering this, is it so unreasonable to theorize that Forbes may have already defected from the United States? And that this was simply his first attempt at assassinating the president as a way of trying to remove him and an unfavorable regime from power and somehow force the removal of said troops from said contested border? Forbes would have had to know about the storm, and planned to use it as a reasonable excuse to be able to assassinate the president while also avoiding suspicion. Again, not too unreasonable. The whole first segment of the movie takes place in Camp David at Christmas time. Snow would be likely, and the forecaster even said on the news that the roads were not great, but drivable. So, Forbes, knowing about the weather, he knows where they're going to be staying, and when they're going to be leaving. He almost certainly has access to the motorcade, but even with all of that, even with the help of the DPRK, you still have to give a little bit of artistic license. So, we'll just assume Forbes, having already defected from the United States government and falling under the political control of North Korea, is employed to assassinate the President of the United States, as opposed to hold him hostages for reasons. So Forbes, he waits for the perfect moment to secretly kill off the President, finally planning to kill him off on their return from their winter retreat at Camp David. And after the president and his family has arrived, Forbes secretly sneaks out to ice a dangerous section of road that is problematic and known for car crashes and motor vehicle incidents. Then he somehow manages to sabotage the anti-lock brake system of the presidential motorcade. Jesus, I'm saying this is sounding less and less likely.
Told you so. And when the motorcade takes a turn, they'll all crash off the road and the president will die. I know. But it doesn't make any sense. Like, why does Forbes want to kill the president? How does that help remove troops from the Korean border? And why wouldn't Forbes just shoot or stab or poison him? And where would Forbes get the tanker of water necessary to actually make that road that icy and dangerous? And how would he be able to switch out all of those tires that quickly and without getting dirty and without nobody noticing?
Wait, so you're saying that whole crash, that whole crazy AF crash, the whole spin out, the First Lady dying, the President almost dying, that was just some whoopsie-daisy black ice and oops, oh no. It can just happen to nobody, even with anti-lock brakes, even with no skid tires, just anybody. Even the President of the United States, just heading out of the driveway one day, but oops, oh no, it's icy, and now his wife's just dead?
Yeah, that's how black ice works, don't you know that?
So the anti-lock brakes, the no skid tires, safety checks, leak cars, fall cars, seatbelts, safety equipment, just none of that matters, just oops, some black ice, and now your wife is dead.
Yeah, again, that's how black ice works. I just said that.
Okay, so Park, having killed off many of the people in the presidential bunker and probably having permanently damaged his friendship with the boss and super best friend, Park starts to choke the president, throwing him to the floor. More really as a display of power than to actually kill him. And outside on the lawn, Mike is hiding behind a tree, reloading, getting ready to shoot some more people on the White House lawn. Most of them dog haters. Bad people. Probably only a few accidental whoopsies friendly fires here and there. Meanwhile, 2 dump trucks show up. These, of course, likewise driven by terrorists. Mike makes it to the White House step, where he reunites with some of his Secret Service brethren. One of them gets shot and dies before him as he gets his bearing. Meanwhile, behind him some more police show up. Pulling up, they take no time and just start firing on the dump trucks, giving no respect to the hard work of the sacred garbage man tradition. These cops, they get lucky, however, as the garbage men, just like almost everyone else in this movie we've seen for the last minute minus Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart, are actually secret terrorists out to overthrow the government. The 2 dump trucks are revealed to have mounted machine guns hidden inside them as they open fire, successfully killing most of the Secret Service agents on the lawn and near the windows of the White House, while also breaking Gerard Butler's massively oversized heart. More Secret Service agents run out into the gunfire, trying to soak up as much of it as possible so that it doesn't damage the front steps to the White House. Sadly, their bodies aren't enough as they quickly fall away, dying there in front of Mike. He screams for the emotional agony of the onslaught. And oh yeah, to add insult to injury, they fire a rocket launcher too. The rocket collides into the front door of the White House, destroying it in a massive explosion. All but a few remaining Secret Service agents are also killed in this explosion in front of Mike and in the blast. The remaining few are gunned down in front of him just a few moments later. And this, again, just tears at Mike's massive heart. One surviving Secret Service member is standing in the doorway to the White House and is about to enter, but at the last moment he as well is shot. Mike reaches for him as the blood drips from his mouth. Come on, Mike calls out, before more gunfire tears through Mike's poor friend. Here we get a moment of sad, somber music to commemorate his fallen comrades. And it's really from this point on, that Mike Banning essentially becomes Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And we follow Snake Plissken into the White House, where there are somehow a few living Secret Service agents still in a gunfight in the hallway. The terrorists are clearly winning as the agents succumb to bullets one by one. Inside the bunker, the Koreans have firmly taken control, as they now have a smart, sophisticated Asian hacker lady locking down the White House with her Asian hacker skills. So, Park, head of the terrorists, he adjusts his glasses. Just that cool little glass adjustment. Back in the White House proper, more gunfire, more casualties, grenades, explosions, many automatic weapons. The terrorists siege one of the security rooms, killing the agents inside. As the last agent dies, he blurts out the movie's title, clearly letting us know how serious the situation has become.
Olympus has fallen,
he blurts out before being finished off. Outside, military units begin to arrive, setting up a line of snipers with their sights aimed at the White House, but it's too late. Like the agent said before, Olympus has fallen. Oh no, is that the end of the episode? No, it's just the end of part 1 of our 5-part Olympus Has Fallen versus White House Down mega battle. Where we're leaving off, things aren't looking good. Not for Mike Banning, and certainly not for America. The White House has been sieged, the president is held at gunpoint, and the only man who can save America has just managed to escape the perils of the front lawn. Will Mike Banning be able to retake the White House, save the president, save America, and save his G for Love and Ever job? And will Kid Connor ever re-emerge? Or will he be redelegated to side story history like so many other inconvenient characters in this movie? Find out next time on
Movies Among Us.